Welcome, my amazing friends. Today I bring you a story that will touch your heart, inspire your soul, and teach you powerful lessons about life, success, and never giving up. This is the story of a man who was not just an actor, not just a comedian, he was a legend. A man whose name is written in golden letters in the history of cinema, a man who made the whole world laugh while hiding his own tears. His name, Sir Charles Spencer Chaplin, but we all know him as Charlie Chaplin. No one, absolutely no one, can match his greatness. His work is timeless. His comedy is universal. His life is a lesson in perseverance, creativity, and the power of never giving up. Even today, decades after his time, he lives in our hearts. His movies still bring joy. His struggles still inspire, and his story? Oh, my friends, his story will show you that no matter how hard life gets, you must keep going. This is not just a story. This is a journey of pain, rejection, poverty, success, and immortality. Watch till the end, because this story is perfect for your English learning and will motivate you like never before. Are you ready? Let's begin. Charlie Chaplin was born in the heart of London, England, on April 16, 1889. His parents, Hannah Chaplin and Charles Chaplin Sr., were both performers in the world of music and theater. They entertained crowds, sang songs, and lived for the stage. But life had different plans for young Charlie. His father was an alcoholic, a man who drank himself into oblivion. He abandoned his family when Charlie was just a little boy. His mother, Hannah, was left alone to raise two children, Charlie and his older half-brother, Sidney. And if you think life was kind to them, you are wrong. They lived in poverty, extreme, unbearable poverty. Sometimes there was no food on the table. Sometimes Charlie had to go to bed hungry. Sometimes his mother would pretend to eat, just so her children could have a little more. They moved from one small, dirty room to another. They lived in fear of being thrown out. But Charlie, he was a child. And children, no matter how hard life is, still find ways to smile. Charlie's mother, Hannah, was a talented singer and actress. She performed in theaters, hoping to earn a few pennies to feed her children. Charlie loved watching her. He would sit backstage mesmerized, dreaming of one day standing in front of an audience. But fate struck again. One terrible night, while performing in a theater, Hannah lost her voice. She could not sing. She tried, but her voice was gone. The audience shouted. They threw things at her. They wanted her off the stage. And then, something magical happened. A little boy, just 5 years old, walked onto the stage. Charlie. He picked up the microphone. He sang. He danced. And the crowd? They roared with laughter. They clapped. They cheered. That was the first time Charlie performed in front of an audience. The first time he felt the magic of making people laugh. And deep inside, he knew. This is what I was born to do. But life was cruel. After many years of being poor, hungry, and sad, Charlie's mother lost her mind. She was sent to a mental hospital. Charlie and his brother were left alone with no family, no money, and nowhere to go. They became street children, wandering, begging, fighting for survival. Imagine this. A small boy, cold and hungry, walking the streets of London, looking through trash cans for food. That was Charlie Chaplin. But did he give up? No. Did he lose hope? Never. He kept going, because he had a dream. And my friends, this is where his real journey begins. Charlie Chaplin was now just a small, hungry, and abandoned boy walking the streets of London. He had no home, no parents to care for him, no money, and no idea where his next meal would come from. He and his older brother Sidney were forced to live in workhouses, terrible places where poor people were sent to work in exchange for food and shelter. These places were cold, cruel, and full of suffering. Charlie was just 7 years old when he first entered one of these workhouses. Imagine a child, so small, so innocent, being thrown into a world of hard labor and pain. He was separated from Sidney and sent to another workhouse alone. And when he finally returned to his mother, she was even sicker than before. Her mind was slipping away. Sometimes she didn't even recognize Charlie. Charlie watched as doctors dragged her to a mental hospital. He screamed, he cried, but he was powerless. She was gone. Charlie was truly alone. A boy with a dream, but even in his pain, he had something powerful inside him. A dream. Charlie wanted to perform. He wanted to be on stage, just like his mother. He wanted to make people laugh, to entertain them, to bring joy to a world that had been so cruel to him. But where would a poor homeless boy go? How would he even start? The first steps towards the spotlight. Charlie knew he had only one option: to work and fight for his dream. He was still a child, but he started looking for small jobs. He washed dishes, delivered newspapers, and even worked as a toy maker. But no matter what job he did, his heart was always on the stage. Then one day he saw a group of street performers acting and making people laugh. Something inside him told him, "This is it. This is my chance." So he joined them. He started performing on the streets, dancing, singing, doing small comedy acts. At first, no one cared. People just walked past him. But Charlie didn't give up. He kept performing. He kept improving. He watched other comedians, studied their movements, their timing, their expressions. And slowly, people started noticing him. They stopped to watch. They started laughing. And for the first time in his life, Charlie felt something magical. He had the power to make people happy. At the age of 14, Charlie got a huge opportunity. He was hired by a theater group called the 8 Lancashire Lads. It wasn't much. He was just a small part of the group, but it was a start. He worked harder than anyone. He learned every move, every trick. He practiced day and night. And his talent? It shined. One day, a theater director saw him and said, "This boy is special. He's different." Charlie was given bigger roles, more responsibilities, and then, at 16 years old, he landed his first major acting role in a play called Sherlock Holmes. Charlie was no longer just a street performer. He was now acting in real theaters in front of big audiences. People loved him. Directors saw something in him. His expressions, his movements, his ability to make people feel emotions without even saying a word. And then, something happened that would change his life forever. Hollywood came calling. In 1910, Charlie was given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go to America. He was invited to join a famous comedy troupe called Fred Karno's Company, which performed in the United States. This was huge. America was where dreams came true. Charlie packed his bags and stepped onto a ship, crossing the ocean towards his future. When he arrived in America, everything felt different. The streets were bigger, the people were louder, the energy was electric, and most importantly, Hollywood was there. Charlie knew one thing: this is where I belong. This is where I will become a star. In 1913, a film company called Keystone Studios noticed Charlie. They gave him a small role in a silent film. It wasn't much, but Charlie saw an opportunity. He wanted to create something unique, something that people would never forget. And so, he created a character, a small man in oversized clothes, a tight coat, a funny little hat, a tiny mustache, and the most famous walk in the world, the tramp. This character would go on to become one of the most iconic figures in the history of cinema. At first, people didn't understand the character. But when Charlie performed, when he moved, when he made people laugh without speaking a single word, the world fell in love. Charlie's films started becoming popular. Producers begged him to make more. Studios offered him huge amounts of money. And in just a few years, the poor boy from the streets of London had become the biggest star in the world. By 1917, Charlie Chaplin was not just famous, he was a phenomenon. People stood in long lines just to watch his movies. His face was printed on posters, newspapers, magazines. He was loved in every country, every language, every culture. And he was just getting started. But behind all the fame, behind all the laughter, Charlie was still the same boy. The boy who once starved on the streets. The boy who once cried for his mother. The boy who never gave up. Charlie Chaplin had finally made it. The poor, hungry boy from London streets was now the biggest movie star in the world. He was not just famous, he was loved. Millions of people watched his movies. They laughed, they cried, they cheered. But behind all the success, Charlie knew something. This was just the beginning. Now he wanted more. He didn't just want to act. He wanted to control everything. The stories, the direction, the music, the emotions. He wanted to create movies his way, but Hollywood didn't like that. At that time, actors were controlled by movie studios. The studios told them what to do, how to act, and even what movies to make. But Charlie Chaplin was different. He said, "No one will control me. I will make my own movies, my way." And so, in 1918, he did something that shocked the whole industry. He built his own studio, Chaplin Studios. Now, he was his own boss. He could create whatever he wanted and no one could stop him. This was a game changer. And then he made a movie that would become one of the most legendary films of all time. In 1921, Charlie released a film called The Kid. It was not just a comedy, it was his story. The story of a poor man and an orphaned boy. A story about hunger, struggle, and love. It was funny but also emotional. People laughed, people cried. The whole world fell in love with this movie. And at that moment, Charlie knew. Movies were not just entertainment. They were powerful. They could change lives, and he was going to use them to change the world. With every movie, Charlie became more powerful. Hollywood had never seen anything like him. Studios were paying actors $10 a week. But Charlie? He was earning $1 million per movie. He became the richest and most powerful actor in the world. And yet, he never forgot his past. He still remembered the days when he had nothing to eat. He remembered his mother sitting alone in the mental asylum. So even when he had everything, he never stopped working hard. He would spend months, even years, making just one film. Every little movement, every small joke, every tiny detail. He planned everything. Because he didn't just want to make movies, he wanted to make history. And then he did something no one believed was possible. By the late 1920s, Hollywood was changing. A new kind of movie had arrived, movies with sound. For the first time, actors could speak on screen. Silent films were dying. Everyone told Charlie, "Forget silent movies, start making talking films." But Charlie refused. He said, "Movies don't need words. Emotions are more powerful than words." And in 1931, when the world thought silent movies were dead, he released City Lights. It was one of the most emotional, beautiful films ever made. Even though it had no dialogue, people cried watching it. The final scene, where Charlie's character looks at a blind girl, it is one of the greatest moments in film history. Even today, people call it the greatest silent movie ever made. And with this movie, Charlie proved that emotions speak louder than words. By the late 1930s, the world was changing again. Adolf Hitler was rising to power in Germany. He was spreading hate, war, and fear. And Charlie noticed something strange. Hitler had the same mustache as him. People started comparing them. So, Charlie made a decision. He would use his comedy to fight against Hitler. In 1940, he made a movie called The Great Dictator. It was his first talking movie. And it was not just a comedy. It was a message to the world. In the final scene, Charlie gives a speech, one of the most powerful speeches in history. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. Let us fight for a world of reason. Let us fight for freedom. The world listened. The speech became legendary. Even today, it is watched by millions of people. It was proof that Charlie was not just a comedian. He was a fighter, a voice for the people. But Hollywood didn't like this. Charlie was too powerful, too independent, and some people didn't like his political messages. So they turned against him. They accused him of things he never did. They spread lies about him. And finally, in 1952, they forced him to leave America. Charlie was kicked out of the country he had helped build. Heartbroken, Charlie moved to Switzerland. He stopped making movies. He lived a quiet life with his family. But the world never forgot him. Then, in 1972, after 20 years, Hollywood realized their mistake. They invited Charlie back. At the Oscars, they gave him a standing ovation, the longest in history, 12 minutes of applause. Even after everything, Charlie had won, because he was not just an actor. He was a legend. Charlie's life teaches us one thing: never give up, no matter how hard life gets, no matter how poor you are, no matter how many people try to stop you. If you have a dream, fight for it. Charlie was a homeless boy with nothing, but he became the most loved man in the world. But behind his fame, his success, and his laughter, his personal life was full of struggles. People betrayed him, governments turned against him, and even after his death, something shocking happened. Now we will reveal his complicated love life, his biggest betrayals, his final years in Switzerland, and the shocking story of how his dead body was stolen from his grave. Charlie Chaplin was a genius, but in love, he was very complicated. He fell in love too easily, and many times his relationships ended in pain and drama. Charlie was married 4 times in his life. His first 3 marriages failed. Each time the woman left him, took his money, and sometimes even took him to court. People started saying, Charlie can make the whole world happy, but he cannot find happiness in love. But then, something changed. In 1943, when Charlie was 54 years old, he met Una O'Neill. She was just 18 years old. People said, she is too young for him. But Charlie didn't care. For the first time, he had found true love. Una became the most important person in his life. She stood by him when the world turned against him. She was his best friend, his love, his everything. They stayed together until the very end, and despite the age gap, they were truly happy. They had 8 children together. For the first time, Charlie had a real family. And there, he lived his final years. For 25 years, Charlie lived in a beautiful house in Switzerland. It was peaceful. It was quiet. He spent time writing, reading, playing with his kids. He would walk in his garden thinking about his past, his struggles, and his journey. Sometimes he would watch his old movies and laugh. Even though he was away from Hollywood, he was not forgotten. People all over the world still loved him. On December 25, 1977, the world woke up to sad news. Charlie Chaplin had died in his sleep. He was 88 years old. It was Christmas Day. The world went silent. A man who had made billions of people laugh was gone. People cried. Every country in the world paid tribute to him. Newspapers wrote, "The world has lost its greatest comedian." But then, something shocking happened. 3 months after his death, something unbelievable happened. One night, a group of thieves broke into his grave. They dug up his coffin. And they stole Charlie Chaplin's body. Yes! His dead body was kidnapped. The thieves wanted money. They demanded $600,000 from his family. But Una, his wife, refused. She said, "Charlie would have laughed at this situation." For weeks, the world was shocked. Where was Charlie Chaplin's body? Then, after a huge police investigation, the thieves were finally caught. They were 2 poor men from Eastern Europe. They had stolen the body to escape poverty. Finally, Charlie's body was returned to his family. And this time, they buried him in a stronger, cement-covered grave, so that no one could ever steal him again. Even though Charlie Chaplin died in 1977, he is still alive. Every time we laugh, he is there. Every time we watch a great movie, he is there. He taught us that life is not just about money, success, or power. Life is about laughter, love, and never giving up. Even when he had nothing, he never lost hope. Even when the world turned against him, he never stopped fighting. Charlie Chaplin is not just a name. He is an emotion. He is the greatest comedian in history, and his story will inspire generations to come. So if he can do it, so can you. Dream big, work hard, and one day, your story will inspire the world. Charlie Chaplin's story is over, but his lessons, his movies, and his spirit will live forever. If you loved this story, share it with the world, because Charlie's message must never be forgotten. And always remember his most famous words: "A day without laughter is a day wasted." Thank you, Charlie. We will never forget you.